I would say we're lucky as far as this storm goes.
Yeah, definitely.
The last video that we posted was was 2 weeks ago, I think exactly, and we haven't had a chance to post anything since, but I figured I'd start this video off with we're okay. Everything here is okay. At the most, I would say we were inconvenienced for the past week. I would say we're lucky as far as this storm goes.
Yeah, definitely.
This video is gonna cut in front of the probably 6 or 7 videos that I have filmed and haven't had a chance to edit because we haven't had power. But this one's kind of more important. I did make a YouTube community post, but I know YouTube doesn't really show those to everybody, so we're still getting people reaching out and asking if we're okay. So I just wanted to put this out there, and we're gonna kind of recap the last week because it's been kind of chaotic. Up until I think yesterday, we haven't had consistent internet, power, or cell service for at least a week. Our internet's actually been out since last Tuesday night. So we didn't have internet for like 10 or 11 days. We're gonna get you guys up to speed and then you're gonna see a whole bunch of videos coming out after this that happened before the hurricane because we've been stockpiling them because we've been working on our house projects and filming everything, so I have a whole bunch. And now that we have power back, I can actually edit them and upload them for you. The 24th of September, we lost our internet. And that was from kind of like the first storms that were starting to come out of the very, very outer bands and systems that were popping up from the hurricane. So we hadn't had internet since Tuesday, and we have really bad service at our house. And so I wasn't able to work pretty much any of last week, the last half of last week.
Yeah, we've had an issue with our routers, our Wi-Fi routers, kind of internally blowing up when we get lightning strikes, and
even though they're on surge protectors.
Right. So we kind of figured out that issue is something we'll fix in the near future. But yeah, so we started getting storms early last week.
Tuesday was
and
the first one.
That's what our basement started flooding then, which is we're used to.
Yeah.
So it gets damp down there, but we are used to handling it. But I think a lot of people don't realize that too. Western North Carolina started flooding before the hurricane because we got some pretty heavy storms in the beginning of that weather system.
Yeah, I think the first storms showed up here on Tuesday, and then I think Wednesday and Thursday, prior to the storms reaching Western North Carolina, the actual hurricane, Asheville was already, there are parts of Asheville that were already underwater. So all last week, while we were kind of still working on the house and getting things in order as much as we possibly could before our friends arrived, because we had been planning a trip for our friends for months, the entire summer. We were trying to get the house as ready as possible for them to be here so we could just hang out and enjoy a mostly finished house that whole week. And I had the Ryan Hall live streams playing all last week while we were working because he was the only person that I was listening to that I kind of saw saying how bad this might be for Western North Carolina, and so I was getting a little bit nervous about it. I remember texting Meg Thursday and saying, hey, this looks like it might be a little rough for us, maybe more than what we usually get for hurricanes, and usually what we get for hurricanes is a lot of wind, but not anything crazy.
Yeah, it's not
it's not super strong.
It's not wind that takes down trees. It's just really windy.
Yeah.
For a day.
And we get some rain usually from hurricanes, just kind of like the leftovers. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, it looks like it might be a little bit more windy than usual. If you guys feel nervous up there on the hill,
yeah, and there was
feel free to come to our basement.
There was some tornado concerns, which is more likely for this area.
Yeah. And I didn't actually think that that would be a concern, but I just wanted to throw it out there because none of us were really expecting it to be what it was. And then I also Thursday preemptively using this brain up here, I was like, I'm gonna renew my chip drop request because we've been here for 2 years and I've never gotten a chip drop because they just don't really come to our area. And we actually did get some wood chips yesterday. I don't know who it was from. I think it's from the people who usually drop them.
Yeah, it is.
I've been taking little snippets of videos since this started as I was able to have my phone charged. Whenever we ventured out, and we have some drone videos from our footage, or drone videos from our property that I'll pop in here as we're chatting so you guys can see kind of what this area looked like a little bit. Friday morning was when the actual hurricane hit western North Carolina. And I think at that point it was technically a tropical storm, but I'm gonna keep calling it a hurricane because that's just easier. It kind of shifted overnight while everybody slept, and it ended up coming right over our area. Actually just west of our area. So we were almost right in it. And that's why I said I think we got lucky. I woke up at 6 to some emergency notifications coming on my phone, and I couldn't fall back asleep. So I was standing in the carport kind of watching the wind and taking some videos of it. It was starting to pick up. The worst part of the storm was supposed to be at our area around 7, and it ended up being like 7 to 9:30-ish that I think we got the worst of it, but there were some really, really strong winds all the way until almost 11. I had just made coffee. Like, I got the coffee pot going at 7:10, and the power went out when the coffee was just starting. So our power went out at like 7:12 a.m. on Friday morning, the 27th. All of our birds are okay. The ducks had the best day of their life the day after the hurricane because there were so many puddles and they loved that.
Yeah, the chickens never even came out of their coop. Usually they come out of the coop right when their door opens around 7 in the morning.
They were in there.
And they stayed in until like noon.
Yeah.
They knew.
They have their instincts. And then it was like around 10-ish that I started, well, he was still sleeping and I was sitting, he was trying to sleep in our bedroom and hoping that the tree next to our house didn't fall on top of him.
Yeah, if we have any trees at risk of hitting the house, it's the one that has branches directly over our bedroom.
Yeah.
Which we know, and like the parts of that tree that go over the house, we are going to get taken care of sooner than later.
So around 10, I would say, I started noticing people were sort of emerging. There were more cars happening, and like the wind was still, we were getting gusts of strong wind, but the rain was starting to die down. And I started noticing people were turning around at the end of our driveway, but I couldn't see why. And so at like 11:30, it was still kind of windy, but the rain had pretty much stopped at that point, and it was lightening up, and we could tell it was almost past. We walked up to the top of the driveway and noticed there's a decent sized pine tree down across the road right after our driveway. And we're like, oh, okay, that's pretty rough. Wasn't really expecting any trees to fall other than the ones down the road that always fall when it storms.
Yeah, there's like a stand of trees further down the road from us that like a normal rainstorm always takes one of those trees down.
Yeah. And so that kind of started off our Friday of realizing how much worse this was than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and that's again like there was that one tree on the road that we could see like from our driveway, and then we couldn't see, like, nothing else on our property really fell that we could see at that point.
Yeah,
like,
not
so
that
we didn't
see.
Even seeing that one tree down, I don't think we really realized how bad it would be.
No, I mean, we had a handful of neighbors that had driven down, and they helped us clear it. Somebody got a tractor and pushed it out. You got the chainsaw out. We cleared it real quick. It wasn't anything crazy. And then we decided, okay, well, let's drive down the road and see if there are any more trees. And that's when we realized how bad this was. Our town was pretty much like obliterated with trees. There were trees down everywhere on the power lines, everywhere. Like very, very, very large trees. We drove down just to the end of our road before you turn, and then we were on our way back. I have footage of this, and I'll put this in here for you guys to see what it looked like as much as possible. We were on our way back, and we saw Megan, Ben, and Buggy driving down the road, and they paused, and they're like, hey, how's it look down there? We just like chatted, and they said they've got some big trees down on their other side of the road too. So that kind of started the day off with, let's go put different clothes on, grab the chainsaw again, and we just went to town clearing as much as possible with the haulers and other neighbors. I think Ben had been clearing most of the day with the tractor by himself and the boys, and we were kind of in and out, like all over the place down the road. We went and helped some other neighbors down a different section of the road who were actually trapped in on both sides. There were like a handful of houses that there were massive piles of trees down and they couldn't get out. They had to park and walk to their houses. So yeah, we just kind of threw gloves on and grabbed the chainsaw and spent that entire day clearing. But we hadn't really gone down the actual main roads yet, and the main roads were also not very accessible. There are still trees kind of hanging over the roads at a scary angle, and we had to drive, I mean everybody, not just us, had to drive under power lines hanging down. People were literally tying like trash to the power lines so that you could see it before you ran into it, and they're just down all over the place. So yeah, town was really bad. Nobody had power. A lot of people still don't have power, and it's been 8 days now.
Yeah, once we got like, I think, I don't know, because what are we, like 2 miles out of town?
Yeah, we're like 7 minutes uptown.
Like between our house and town, there was probably like a mature 2-foot diameter tree on the power lines, like every 20 feet.
If not more.
So basically coming out of town, like nobody had power. When we did get into town, there was still power.
Yeah, some of it.
So we got lucky with that because we're one of the last houses on city water.
Yeah.
So like our water treatment facility kept power and is able to provide water the whole time. But then even at that, you know, that first day, like places that had power, none of the stores were open.
No.
And
The only thing that was open was Hobby Lobby.
I think gas stations were open, but the lines were like hundreds of cars long.
Down the road, blocking the entire road. We had to drive in the turn lane to get past them. It was crazy. Honestly, just in the last couple days, they've started to be a little less crazy.
Yeah.
The gas stations aren't as busy now. We had to drive over like a half hour away to get gas a few days later. So that was Friday, the day that everything kind of happened and we realized how bad it actually was. And again, our property, everywhere that we use on a regular basis wasn't super affected other than some tree debris like leaves and some limbs and stuff. But for the most part, we're used to the flooding on our property because of how it is. Our neighbors call it the hole. They say, oh yeah, you live down in the hole. So our house is at the top of our property and all the water flows down.
And luckily, like, there's some things we'll improve upon and we've known about, but like with our property having berms and swales, the water management is pretty good.
Yeah.
There's not like fast moving water.
I couldn't even take footage of the water after the storm was done from like walking out there to show you guys because it left our property so quickly, because it was flowing down into the woods. So, and our basement didn't really flood any more than it usually does. Too much more than it usually does.
No, and our basement too, it's kind of like the water pressure underground. So actually like later in the day, we kept getting water in the basement, but again, we're pretty used to dealing with that. It's a little worse without power.
Yeah.
So usually we run fans and dehumidifiers down there.
Yeah. Pretty much our house just smelled really stale and really humid for a while.
Yeah.
When we got done clearing trees on Friday night, we got back home and realized that we didn't have cell service. Something must have happened during the day on Friday that we didn't realize, where our service just stopped.
Yeah, because we had it in the morning.
We had service most of the day until like 6.
Yeah.
And we have horrible service at our house anyway. So we were out of the house helping clear trees, and we didn't realize it until we got home that there was absolutely no service. Like SOS is what the thing said, and it was only showing the satellite to show our locations. And the reason that was a problem was because we had a friend driving down to visit, and she was already on her way. She was probably 4 hours into what was supposed to be a 10-hour drive from Michigan when the storm actually hit us really bad. So she didn't realize that it was going to be that bad. Like I said, everybody thought it was just going to be rain and some wind, like it usually is.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's what, like, her driving down, we're like, oh, well, I mean, you know, the rain will probably even be done, like, by the time you get here. Like, it's not a big deal, just leave a little later in the day.
So she had a lot of detours to deal with. She was driving through the downed trees and had to turn back a whole bunch of times to get down here, but she was already like so far at that point that it didn't make sense for her to try and turn back. So that drive ended up taking her 14 hours and we couldn't contact her at all. She didn't have service at all. So I'm really glad she made it here. I was really concerned about that. She got here pretty late in the evening. She was planning to surprise them, so they didn't know she was coming. She ended up coming anyway. And their flights got canceled, all of the flights into the southeast on Friday that I was told, because we couldn't look, were canceled. And we couldn't communicate with those friends either, because even in town there wasn't any service. I don't think anywhere in this area had service, and some places still don't. So they ended up just rescheduling for Saturday, and we weren't able to tell them, hey, like, this was really bad here. So they ended up coming down too. It ended up being okay. It worked out. We had a nice little week of camping. Okay, so moving on to Saturday, we started the day by going to pick up our Thanksgiving turkey from Sow the Land, Jason and Lorraine. And the reason we went and did that, even though we didn't have a generator, we have our freezers full of food. I wasn't sure what the status of that was. It took us probably 3 times as long to get there as it should have, because there was so many downed trees. But I didn't want them to be stuck with it. And we couldn't communicate with each other. So I was like, I scheduled to go pick it up this day. We need to go pick it up. And it ended up working out okay. And we just kind of spent the rest of that day like trying to get the house ready for being without power for who knows how long. Our friends showed up, I think at like 6 or 5 or something that evening. They flew in, they got their rental car, and they made it here a little bit later than expected, but we still had a fun surprise. And we just kind of spent the evening walking around, showing the kids the birds, and they got to feed the chickens and treats and stuff. They really liked that. And then we just did puzzles by candlelight the rest of the evening. And that's kind of what we did the rest of the time they were here. Like a lot of it, we just hung out at home, did puzzles, and enjoyed each other's company, because everything we had planned to do was in Western North Carolina, and obviously some of those things don't even exist anymore. On Sunday, the day after they got here, we ended up being able to chat with Meg and Ben again, and they said that they had an extra generator. So we were able to kind of swap that on and off, like bringing it back and forth all week from them to us, trading it off to keep our freezers cold. So we plugged both of our downstairs freezers into it, and we had the fridge plugged in, but I think we're gonna have to throw away most of the stuff that's actually like in our upstairs fridge and freezer, because that wasn't really holding the temperature. It's just not made to do that. Like
yeah, and we had to open that a lot more to actually like get food
cooking.
that we were cooking.
We didn't open the basement freezers whatsoever, so those are good. But upstairs, we are probably gonna have to toss that stuff. But we are really, really, really thankful that Meg and Ben had an extra one, and they were willing to share it with us. That's why we ended up going out of town to get gas, to make sure we had enough for that. And that got us through. We were talking maybe 2 weeks ago, just before this hit, before we realized there was going to be a storm at all, that we need to get the generator now that we have freezers, and it just hasn't really been in the budget because we've been trying to get this place up and running still. Also on Sunday, we heard from Sage, so I wanted to update you guys on that. Sage, Terra Nova Acres, my co-host for the She Said Homestead podcast. I have had a whole bunch of people asking me if she's okay. We heard from her Sunday, and she's okay. She doesn't have power still, so she doesn't have service or internet either. I don't think she has city water. She has well water, but she's been using a neighbor's hand pump, I think she said. She just got a generator 2 days ago, and she's able to keep her freezers cold now, and her area got hit even worse than ours did, so I'm really glad that she's okay. We were really worried about her, and so I figured I'd just update you on that. I'll probably post something on our podcast page too. Something else about the past week is that we were already planning to be kind of on vacation. I was planning to take all 5 days of my vacation this past week because we were gonna have friends here, and Taylor was gonna take partial days, or like partial week off. And that kind of got all messed up because his work was closed, and yeah, do you want to talk about that at all?
We have some friends in South Carolina, not super close to where I work, but in the same area, and we were able to talk to them a little bit, so we knew that they had like similar damage down there. I don't think where I work got actually damaged. It's an area like where I work has a big like runoff pond anyway, and the property manages water pretty well because it gets a lot of water under normal circumstances. But yeah, I guess it was just without power for half a week or so. So I had already taken those days off, and by the time power came back on, it was when I was going to go back to work. So I just kind of took my days off and shifted them down the week so I could stay home and keep the generator going and hang out and be with friends and stuff.
On the 30th, Monday, we threw a big birthday party here at home for everyone who was here. We had 7 of us here, including the 2 kids. 5 of the 7 of us have a birthday within, I think, 6 weeks of each other. So we just did a big birthday party. I had already gotten party decorations. We got a piñata. This is all stuff I got ahead of time. And we just like decorated the whole house. I'll put some videos of it in here because it was really cute. And we got these mini pumpkins. Marta brought these down so we could paint pumpkins with the kids. We decorated birthday hats, and we just had fun. We tried to do something really fun for the kids that isn't like reminding them they don't have power here. They're just camping at our house for the week. Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was in the plans anyway. We didn't get to bake a birthday cake like we wanted to, but that's okay. We still had fun. That's kind of a really long recap of the week, but we've been up to a lot, even though we've just been at home. It's been quite a week, and I feel like now is probably a good time to talk about just like how we're gonna go forward. And it doesn't feel like real life here right now. We could keep living normal life, but if you leave our house, it doesn't feel like real life. It's starting to feel a little bit more normal in our actual little town because the trees aren't hanging on all the power lines as much anymore, and it's getting cleaned up. Everybody's starting to get power again, but I don't know if that's because we had guests or because of the hurricane or both. When we have people visit, it doesn't really feel like we have real life happening because it just, I don't know. You set everything else aside and hang out and spend time with people. For me, part of the reason that it feels like such an odd week is because we hadn't had service or power, so we couldn't really see what was happening around us. And I think that's probably where a lot of people are, where like they can't really see all the devastation that's happening. Just in the last few days, you've started to see the YouTube videos, all of the short form content coming out of the destruction because people are being delivered Starlinks and actually getting a little bit of service back. So yeah, that feels weird, not knowing what's happening in our area. And like I said, like we didn't realize the extent of everything that was happening around us because we're tucked down in the hill, we can't see anything, and we didn't think it was that bad until we drove down the road. Honestly, I've kind of felt like guilty all week that we didn't have any more damage than we did, but I'm glad that we didn't. Whenever we do go into town, we've been seeing just the trucks of people, the linemen trying to get power back. Like every large parking lot that exists in our county, because we are right on the edge of the destruction that happened, like the really bad stuff, our county is, and this could be other counties too, but like obviously we're right here, so we're seeing what's happening right in front of us. The community college, the Harbor Freight parking lot, the Lowe's parking lot, literally everywhere. There's parking lots on the side of the road, just down the road from us. Everywhere is just filled with trucks trying to get power back on. There's staging areas for them. Our airport has been taking in 60, 70, 80. Yesterday it was like 130 planes of people sending in supplies to like donate and bring up to the mountains because people just don't have access to anything up there still, and they're slowly starting to open some of the roads. I think there's one good route out of Asheville now that people can go to, like Greenville and Spartanburg and whatnot, to get supplies. We are in the county where Chimney Rock and Lake Lure are, and I know that like people don't have anything there. You still can't really get into those areas. There's nothing left in a lot of those areas. So yeah, I think we got really lucky, and I don't think that even if we had prepared for having a power outage more by having a generator, like if the storm had shifted slightly more east, like we could not have been prepared for any of that. I don't think anybody could have. There wasn't really any warning for how bad that was going to be. Like I said, the one person that I saw saying it was going to be bad, it was the day before. So even if people had a chance to evacuate and were able to like have the means to evacuate, I don't think that there was really enough warning, and the storm shifted overnight. So that really put everybody who got hit right in the path, and a really, really bad location for it because of the mountains. The water that came down was a lot of force coming through those tight valleys, and it's tight valleys up there. If you've never been to Western North Carolina, it's a lot of switchbacks, a lot of tight spaces. All the towns are situated near water at the bottom of the valleys because that's where the flatter spots are that you can put things. So it's a recipe for disaster when something like this happens, and it happened. In some areas it was more than like a 1,000-year storm prediction, which is less than 0.1% chance in any year of that happening. So I think just for some actual data, I remember our county, it said almost 23 inches of rain in that couple day span. I counted for what our property said, and it was like 13 inches for reference, and some areas got about 30 inches in Western North Carolina. I'm trying to talk about this without crying.
Yeah, so I guess like it's been a little weird since we had guests here. We haven't really been able to get out and do as much as we've wanted to help the area. Like you said, it's just getting to the point where you can get in and out of Asheville, but there's still a ton of little mountain towns that like you can't get in and out of still. Like there's still a lot of efforts to clear routes in and out of those places. So now that it's just us, we've looked like locally around us, like at the airport, unloading planes and stuff. They've needed volunteers, but the community support has been like really, really good to see all over Western North Carolina. So they're actually in our area, there's like too many volunteers, which is awesome to see. But further west of us, again in Asheville and plenty of other more remote areas, like they're gonna need help for a long time. So hopefully in the next week or two, we can get out to those areas as they become accessible, if there's any volunteer opportunities. And yeah, I think it'll just be really important to to not forget that a lot of those places are basically anywhere that was by a water source is like gone, and those are people's homes and stuff that, you know, that's not going to get fixed in the next week or two. It'll need support for a long time, so hopefully we can help with that. I mean, it was nice to help our neighbors right around here, and a lot of our neighbors helped as well, which is great to see, and I'm sure there's that happening all over the place.
Yeah.
But the long-term help is definitely going to be needed, so we're hoping we can do some of that and continue to help out the area, and hopefully, I don't know, the outside support that this area has seen, hopefully that doesn't stop anytime soon, because it'll be needed for a long time.
Collect myself. I love you, squirrel. More things I want to say, but I can't say them without crying. I think having guests here, I've not really been able to sit and just let myself feel how bad I feel for our area. And it feels kind of silly to be upset about things like our favorite places to go visit when family comes and visits are just completely gone now when people have lost their homes. We've spent so long trying to live here, trying to be able to move here because we love it here so much. And it's just devastating to see everything that's happened. Like, we're not from here, but we're trying to make this our home. We're making this our home. Our kids will be from here. And I just care about it so much. I'm gonna put some resources, some links in the description. I'm just gonna get rid of all of our other description stuff, and if you have the means to donate, whether it's physical donations, finding somewhere in your area that's sending supplies to our area, I probably won't be able to link stuff for that, but I'll link monetary donation sites that are people who are actually here and helping and handing out supplies to people who need it, and purchasing things in bulk. And there's so much of that happening right now. I saw, like, my hometown in Michigan is sending trucks down here, and I know that's happening. We've got linemen from California, we've got linemen from Canada, all over the country. It's wild to see, and it's really humbling. And I can't imagine how much people appreciate that, who obviously, like, lost everything in their lives. And not even just the people who lost their physical homes, but there are so many people in our county that work in the mountains. They drive the half hour to the mountains, and that's where their jobs are, so now they're unemployed. They have no source of income. It's just really devastating. So I'm gonna post those links below. We've had a lot of people asking if you can support us, and honestly, we're fine. I would much rather that any monetary donations go to people who actually really need it. And if you do want to support us, just watch our videos with the ads, and we'll try and make some more donations based off of that as well, as much as we possibly can, in addition to trying to volunteer our time. And I think the most important thing, Taylor kind of already said this, but don't stop posting about this, don't stop sharing about it, don't forget about it by next week, because people are going to be dealing with this for months, if not years. And Appalachia's history is based on being forgotten. And this isn't something that people can recover from if it gets forgotten about. It needs to be consistently put out there, so keep sharing and keep checking on people, because they're gonna need it. Alright, I can't believe I made it through that. So we'll be putting out more videos from prior to this week. Keep an eye out for those. I'll try and put extra out going forward. We're gonna have our 2-year anniversary video out as soon as I can get it made and edited. And yeah, we'll just keep you guys posted. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to check that description. Bye guys.